Welcome to the deep dive.
Okay, so today we're attempting something.
Yeah.
Well, felt pretty ambitious even to us initially.
Mm,
We're going to try and connect ancient Greek mythological structures,
yeah.
specifically this idea of sacred union,
Right.
directly to, well, cutting-edge research,
Yeah.
functional MRI scans, modern neurological decision theory. It seems like a huge leap.
It really does sound like three totally separate things, doesn't it? You've got mythology, psychology, and then neuroscience just thrown in there.
Exactly.
But this stack of sources we look through, it actually weaves together this, breathtakingly cohesive argument. It's quite integrated.
That's what struck me too.
It suggests that the very structure we need for, positive, healthy decision-making now
Uh-huh.
was essentially mapped out, even ritually practiced, thousands of years ago. It's quite a claim.
It is, and that's really the core of our mission for this deep dive. We got these sources that start with this ancient Greek concept, Hieros, Gamos.
The sacred marriage.
Right, the sacred marriage.
Mm.
And they use it as a kind of foundational blueprint.
Okay.
Then, this blueprint gets applied to a modern psychological model, one that pairs the sources actually call it
Dimyam. Yeah.
with integrity, or Tom.
Tom. Got it.
So our goal today is basically to follow these sources step by step, see how they argue this pairing maps onto, well, observable neurological processes.
Processes that govern how individuals and the sources focus specifically on males here,
Right, that's an important
how
point.
they navigate stress and make decisions.
Yeah,
And the idea isn't just to draw, some vague analogies. That wouldn't be much of a deep dive.
yeah.
The mission, as you said, is really to see the integration. How these fields that seem so different actually form one very consistent pattern.
A pattern for what, though?
Well, a pattern necessary for healthy growth, for harmony, and crucially for creative decision-making today. It's like finding this universal architecture that spans, well, millennia. Wow. Okay, let's unpack this. So, section 1. We absolutely have to start with the foundation, right? This Greek concept. Hieros Gamos. That's skamos in Greek.
Mm-hmm.
We translate it sacred marriage, but you mentioned earlier, and the sources imply that phrase maybe doesn't quite capture it for us today. Can you elaborate on that? What was the real ancient context?
Yeah, you're spot on. Sacred marriage feels a bit limited, maybe even quaint to modern ears. In ancient Greece, Hieros Gamos was much bigger. It referred to a cosmic event, a divine union.
Cosmic. So not just people getting married.
Not primarily, no. It was often symbolized in myths as, say, the joining of heaven and earth, Gaia and Uranus,
Okay.
or the union of specific gods, usually a male and a female deity like Zeus and Hera. And the point wasn't just the union itself, but that the union was for something. It was to achieve a specific, necessary creative outcome.
Necessary. Like things would go wrong if it didn't happen.
Precisely. The union itself was deeply ritualistic because it symbolized fertility, cosmic order, creation itself. If that divine pair didn't unite, the consequence was chaos, sterility, maybe the disruption of the seasons, the cycles needed for life.
Wow. So it's less about a human ceremony and much more about fundamental universal order.
Exactly, which is why the core definition the sources build on is this. Hieros Gamos symbolizes bringing together two complementary forces.
Complementary, not just similar.
Critically important distinction. Complementary forces, or essential entities, to form a unified whole that is actively creative. The union itself is presented as the mechanism, the required mechanism for generating positive, life-sustaining outcomes.
Okay, that completely shifts the perspective. It's not just a nice symbolic idea. It's framed as a necessary precondition for things to work, for growth to happen. And
Yeah.
if we're talking complementary essential forces, that implies a really powerful relationship, one of necessity.
Absolutely, a necessary interdependence. And this idea of necessity, it's actually reinforced in the Greek language itself. The sources pointed out a specific verb closely tied to this kind of covenantal union, sujumi, sudugnumi.
Suzugnumiaske. What does that add to this picture of sacred pairing? What does the verb tell us?
Well, sudugnumi literally means to yoke together, or to join as one.
Yoke, like oxen.
Exactly like oxen. Picture that image, a yoke. It's that heavy wooden frame, right? It joins two animals side by side.
Aw.
They aren't just casually walking together. They're physically harnessed, forced to share the load, compelled to move in the same direction at the same pace.
So if one pulls off to the side or stops,
They both fail. The whole enterprise fails. The plow doesn't move.
that image, the yoke, it's incredibly powerful for setting the terms of the relationship. It's enforced cooperation almost, a required partnership.
Yes. And that's why the term suzugnuми isn't just, used for marriage, but also in these really sacred covenantal contexts in ancient texts. It signals a divine fusion, a kind of oneness that is required. It's not optional.
Okay.
So the pairing of the two forces, the entities under that yoke, it's framed as a divinely orchestrated necessity, absolutely essential for successful creative growth.
I see.
And the sources use this ancient concept, this yoking, to really establish the premise for the psychological forces we're about to discuss. The idea is that these forces can't work properly alone. They must be joined, Suzanumi, for harmony and balance.
Right. So the philosophical groundwork is laid. The ancient pattern demands certain pairings are non-negotiable if you want positive creation. So if we accept this premise of Hieros Gamos, that the union itself generates the positive results, how do the sources make that jump? How do we get from cosmic fertility rituals and yoked oxen to our internal psychological lives? That feels like a massive leap.
It is a massive step, absolutely. But the sources argue that our psychological life basically follows the same universal architecture. The logic is, if the cosmos needed paired forces for order and creation,
Then our internal world needs paired forces for internal order and, well, maturation, going up properly.
exactly, the ancient template of necessary pairing for creation gets mapped onto individual development.
Okay, so how did the sources specifically use that Hieros Gamos blueprint, that yoking idea, to frame these psychological forces they called Dimion and Tom?
Well, they take that necessary pairing, that Hieros Gamos requirement, and apply it directly.
Yeah.
It becomes the grounding metaphor for the psychological model.
So imagination, Dimion, and integrity, Tom.
Right. The analogy serves as that crucial bridge. The sources propose that the union of Dimion and Tom is analogous, functionally analogous, to that ancient sacred complementary pairing required for creation.
Let's pause on the terms themselves for a second. We're using imagination and integrity as the English stand-ins, but the sources stick with the Hebrew Dimion and Tom. Does using those specific words carry extra weight? A deeper meaning, maybe?
I think it does, yeah. Dimion isn't just imagination like daydreaming. It often carries this stronger sense of like visionary power or creative capacity. It's the ability to genuinely visualize what isn't real yet. The potential for innovation, for building the future. Think big picture.
And Tom, more than just don't lie.
Definitely more.
Mm-hmm.
Tom often implies completeness or wholeness, maybe uprightness. Think structural integrity.
Ah, okay, like the integrity of a building.
Exactly. It's the solid foundation. The structural soundness that ensures the grand vision of Dinia gets built in a way that's just fair and sustainable. It won't collapse.
Got it.
And the sources really insist. These aren't just, personality quirks.
Yeah.
They're fundamental forces, complementary forces, required to work together under that yoke.
And this is a really key point the sources hammer home, isn't it? They are complementary, not opposites locked in some kind of eternal battle.
Yes.
Because I think our modern default is often to frame it that way, right? Creative vision versus practical ethics. Like, it's a conflict.
Exactly. And if you see them as opponents, you're immediately setting up a win-lose situation. Someone has to give.
Right.
But if you see them as complementary, yoked together, Suzanumi, then their union becomes necessary for anything good, for growth, for harmony, for actual creation.
Okay, so what happens if they're not yoked? If they get separated?
Well, think about it. If Dimion, that visionary, imaginative drive, runs totally unchecked, what do you get?
Maybe reckless schemes? Self-serving ambition? Building things without thinking about the consequences?
Precisely. Creation without responsibility. But what if Tom, integrity, structure, rules, runs unchecked?
Stagnation. Fear of taking any risk? Just following rules for the sake of rules without actually doing anything creative?
Exactly. Adherence without output. So separation leads to distortion or failure. It echoes that cosmic chaos Hieros Gamos was supposed to prevent, just on an internal scale.
Okay, so the framework insists on this dynamic balance. It mentions competition and cooperation. How does that fit in?
Well, you need the Dimion element for the competition,
Yeah.
right? The drive to innovate, to build something new or better. That's competitive energy.
Okay.
But you need the Tom element for the cooperation. The shared rules, the fairness, the structure that allows competition to happen without destroying the group or the relationship.
I see. Competition within a cooperative framework.
Yes. And the sources don't just leave this as an abstract principle. They explicitly ground it in something very concrete. Healthy child development.
Ah, okay. How so?
Maturation, growing up well in this model, is fundamentally the process of learning to successfully yoke these two forces together inside yourself. Learning to be both creative and fair.
That makes sense. And to make this super clear, super accessible, the sources offer this fantastic analogy. I think we should really spend a moment on this. The Lego analogy.
Yes. It's incredibly effective, I thought, especially for conveying this required dynamic, this complementary pairing.
So how does it go? Set it up for us.
Okay, so the sources ask you to picture two Lego figures,
Right.
standard little Lego people.
Got it.
One figure comes down from the sky, floats down. This one represents Dimion.
The sky. So limitless potential, vision, the what if.
Exactly, blue sky thinking, literally.
Yeah.
And the other figure emerges from the earth, solid ground. This one is Tom.
Earth. So grounded, structure, reality, rules, fair play.
You got it. Grounded structure, adherence to what's real and fair.
Okay, two figures, sky and earth, Dimion and Tom. What happens next?
Well, the crucial part is the orchestrator. There's this figure described as a friendly giant.
A friendly giant, like benevolent.
Yeah, a benevolent force. The sources suggest, like God, perhaps,
Yeah.
this giant brings the two Lego figures together. And here's the key. Not to fight, but to build something wonderful as a team.
Okay, that setup immediately frames the union as positive, purposeful, necessary for creation. They're not enemies, they're partners with different skills.
Precisely. Specialized partners brought together for a shared goal.
Okay, now let's apply that. How does this play out when, say, a kid is actually playing with Legos? How do Dimion and Tom show up?
Right, so Dimion is the engine. It's the creative spark, the competitive drive. This is when kids are like, let's see who can build the tallest tower.
Yeah, okay. That's pure Dimion. Ambition, creation, maybe a bit of showing off.
Totally. It's the drive for innovation, taking the risk of building higher, pursuing that opportunity to win or create something amazing.
So where does Tom come in? How does the Earth figure contribute?
Tom is the governor, the ethical structure, the how you play the game. So maybe there's a limited pile of special bricks everyone wants. Tom is sharing those bricks fairly. It's sticking to the rules you all agreed on, like no knocking over someone else's tower. It's being fair, even when that competitive Dimion part of you really, really wants to win.
Ah, I see. It's the sportsmanship.
Exactly,
Yeah.
good sportsmanship.
And the critical takeaway here for the kid playing, and I guess for us listeners too, is that the goal isn't just to build the tallest tower, Dimion,
Right.
but to build it fairly, within the rules, respecting the other players, Tom.
Yes. The two parts are never meant to be fighting each other. They're like two hands, right? Working together. Best friends, the analogy says. Cooperating to achieve a shared goal under shared rules.
So what happens if the kid fails the Tom test? Say they cheat, hoard the good bricks, or secretly kick their friend's tower.
Well, then that creative impulse, that Dimion drive to build the tower, it becomes what? Destructive, selfish. It breaks the game, maybe. The other kid won't want to play anymore. Exactly. The creative energy gets twisted. Or at least it isolates the child. The psychological outcome is negative, not positive, even if they won't, by building the tallest tower through unfair means.
Okay.
So the sources are really presenting this union creativity yoked with trust, with integrity as the fundamental pattern. The pattern for positive action, maybe even for survival within a group, mirroring those ancient ritual patterns needed for cosmic order.
What's really striking here is the consistency across scales. The sources seem to argue that if that ancient pattern, Hieros, Gamos, was necessary for the community's survival and the continuation of life, then this psychological pairing, Dimion and Tom, is just as necessary for the individual's psychological survival, for their ability to generate positive, sustainable growth over their lifetime.
Yes, it brings that abstract sacred pairing right down to earth. Makes it immediately practical, relevant to everyday decisions, even playing with Legos.
Yeah.
And that foundation, that argument for necessity, is what allows the sources to then take the next step into the neurological realm. They essentially suggest that the brain itself has developed specific, complex mechanisms to enforce this union, to keep that yoke in place.
Why? Because the consequences of them separating are so bad.
So detrimental, yeah, to the individual's ability to function well socially, creatively, to thrive.
Okay, that sets up the challenge for our next section perfectly. We've got the mythological template, the psychological blueprint. Now, how do we bridge that to the concrete, observable machinery of the brain? All right, so section 3. We're making the transition now from this more abstract union of Dimian and Tom
Imagination and integrity.
to specific observable decision-making processes. And this is where the sources bring in the idea of the decision tree, specifically focusing on, well, observable male neurological behavior.
Yeah, the sources lean on research looking at male actions, particularly the kind of internal calculus that seems to run when deciding whether to engage in certain behaviors.
The behaviors referred to as mating games in the sources.
Right, which sounds specific, but they seem to use it more broadly to cover competitive and relational social maneuvering, things about status, risk, cooperation within a group.
Okay, so this decision tree, what are the branches? What's the core choice being made?
The framework they lay out suggests the individual is constantly, maybe unconsciously, choosing between two fundamental, deeply ingrained paths or needs.
And those paths are belonging and opportunity.
Correct. The brain is depicted as running this calculation. Do I prioritize the deep need for belonging, which means fitting in, being accepted by the group, focusing on teamwork?
Okay, belonging. That sounds like it connects back to Tom, to integrity, right? The
Yes.
social contract.
And it serves as the neural correlate of Tom maintaining the group structure, the fairness. The other path is acting upon opportunity.
Opportunity. So seeing a chance for personal gain, achievement, building that tallest tower.
Yes. Spotting an unbuilt goal, pursuing personal achievement, maybe taking a risk for a potential reward. This is the neural correlate of Dimian, the imaginative, action-oriented drive,
And the sources say both are vital.
explicitly stated as vital paths, both necessary for, evolutionary success, social success, individual growth. You need both belonging and the drive to achieve.
But hang on, let's circle back to something you mentioned. Why the specific focus on male decision-making here? Is this model only for men? Do the sources talk about female decision-making at all, or is this just a limitation of the material we reviewed?
That's a really crucial question to ask, and the sources are actually quite explicit about the scope here.
Okay.
They state this particular model, this belonging versus opportunity decision tree managed by stress pathways, is tailored to observable differences they found in how males tend to approach certain kinds of social risk and competition.
The mating game environment again?
Right, that environment involving risk-taking, hierarchy negotiation, resource competition. The decision tree described is constrained to the specific data set they analyzed, which focused on those observable male-centric behaviors.
So they're not saying women don't make decisions or don't have Dimian and Tom.
Not at all. They just are presenting this specific neurological mechanism, the stress pathway management of belonging versus opportunity in this way, as the universal framework for everyone in all situations. It's the mechanism they identified when tracing the neural correlates of Dimian-Tom balance, specifically in these male pattern competitive contexts.
Okay, that clarifies the scope significantly. Thank you. So within that scope, the male brain is running this constant high-stakes internal assessment, prioritize group acceptance, belonging Tom, or prioritize individual achievement, opportunity, Dimian.
Essentially, yes, a continuous balancing act.
Yeah.
And critically, the sources identify the manager of this whole process, the internal mechanism that holds the yoke steady.
And that is
The brain's stress pathways.
stress pathways. Really, that seems counterintuitive. We usually think of stress as, anxiety, fight or flight, worry. How can that be the manager of a positive, balanced union?
Well, because the sources use stress in a broader, more neutral way here. It's
Yeah.
not just negative anxiety. It encompasses worry, sure, but also excitement, arousal, alertness.
Ah, okay. Like the stress of a deadline or the excitement before a race.
Exactly. Stress, in this context, is the body's internal feedback mechanism, the alert system. It gauges the intensity and priority of the situation, of the potential action.
So it provides the energy, the oomph for the decision.
Precisely. Think of it like the neurological version of that friendly giant overseeing the Lego build. Stress provides the energy that initiates the decision process, whether that energy feels like anxiety, maybe worrying about being excluded if you grab the opportunity, or feels like focused excitement, thrilled by the potential gain of that opportunity.
That's a completely different way of looking at stress, not as the enemy, but as the engine or the alert signal. Okay, so the neurochemistry of stress provides the energy and urgency, but the actual decision, the balancing of Tom belonging and Dimian, opportunity, that's handled by what the sources call an internal neurological team.
Yes, an internal team of specific brain regions. And this is where that abstract psychological model of Dimian and Tom finally lands in concrete, functional neuroanatomy. We really need to detail the two main players on this team, according to the sources.
Okay, let's start with the one they describe as like the regulator of complexity or conflict monitor.
That would be the anterior cingulate cortex, usually abbreviated as the ASC.
The ASC, what's its job on this team?
The ASC is known to be crucial for things like conflict monitoring, error detection, and emotional regulation. It's constantly processing discrepancies, especially cognitive and emotional conflicts.
Like the conflict between wanting to belong and wanting that opportunity.
Exactly like that. The ASC assesses the gravity of that decision. It flags the potential for error, particularly social error. It weighs the emotional cost.
So the ASC is kind of like the internal moderator. It's processing the intense feelings, the push and pull generated by the stress pathways when facing that choice.
That's a good way to put it. It helps regulate the output. It ensures the system doesn't just jump impulsively towards one path simply because the stress signal, the excitement or the worry is really high.
It asks the hard questions.
It kind of asks, okay, how much does chasing this opportunity right now potentially risk my sense of belonging? And how much emotional effort is that going to cost me to manage?
Okay, that's the ASC, conflict monitoring, emotional regulation. What's the second key region on the team? The one described as the internal judge.
That's the OFC, the orbitofrontal cortex. And the sources make a point of noting that this region, the OFC, was previously identified in their psychological model work as the internal judge.
The judge. Okay, what does the OFC judge?
Its primary role involves calculating consequences, evaluating social appropriateness, assessing potential reward versus potential punishment. It essentially holds the internal rule book for social behavior.
Wow, okay. The link there seems incredibly direct. If the ASC is monitoring the conflict and managing the emotional intensity of the belonging versus opportunity debate, then the OFC is performing the integrity check. It's asking, does this potential opportunity, this dimion-driven action, violate the rules of the group? Does it break the social contract? Is it fair?
That's exactly the role the sources assign it. It's the neural correlate of Tom.
Integrity, wholeness,
Right.
fairness.
Yes. The OFC evaluates whether the planned action aligns with that social contract, with the fairness and structure needed to maintain belonging. It calculates the potential social cost of violating those rules.
So you've got these two key regions, the ASC monitoring the conflict and the emotional stakes, the OFC calculating the social consequences and checking against the rules.
Both activated and modulated by the energy, the urgency or excitement from the stress pathways.
And together, this team is physically manifesting that required psychological union. The yoking of imagination, dimion opportunity, and integrity, Tom-alonging.
That's the argument the sources build. It's a really comprehensive picture, isn't it?
It really is. We've got the mythological template demanding union, the psychological model defining the necessary forces, dimion, Tom, and now a specific neurological team, ASC, OFC, managed by stress pathways to actually execute the decision. So what's the result? What does this all mean for actual behavior? How does this sophisticated neural setup ensure the individual makes, well, good decisions? Decisions that honor both those ancient principles and modern social life.
Right, the synthesis. What's the positive outcome? It really comes down to the behavioral goal of this whole system.
Okay.
The function of the stress pathways, activating and informing this ASC-OFC neural team. It's all geared towards deciding which path to take, belonging or opportunity, while maintaining good sportsmanship. That's the key phrase again.
Maintaining good sportsmanship.
Yeah.
Keeping the complementary forces under the yoke, essentially.
Exactly. Not letting one run wild at the expense of the other.
And the sources actually sum up the ideal behavioral outcome of this entire complex managed system with two specific traits, don't they? Traits that are basically the living embodiment of a successful Hieros, Gamos, a successful yoking.
They do. That's the ultimate conclusion drawn in the material we reviewed. They state that this whole neurological interplay, when working well, serves to keep the individual both brave and kind.
Brave and kind. Let's unpack that behaviorally. How do brave and kind map back directly onto those two decision paths, opportunity and belonging?
Okay, so brave is tied directly to the opportunity path, the dimion path.
Right. Taking action, seeking achievement.
Yes. It's the active, creative, sometimes risk-taking side of imagination. It's the willingness to pursue that goal, to build the tallest tower, to actually do something in the world. That takes a certain bravery, right? Especially if there's risk involved. It's essential for growth, for progress.
Okay, brave opportunity, Dimion. So kind must be tied to the belonging path.
Directly. Kind represents the fairness, the adherence to integrity, the recognition of shared purpose and rules. It's the structural side, the Tom side.
The social glue.
Exactly. It ensures that the action taken, the The brave action considers the group, that it benefits or at least doesn't harm the whole group and the social fabric. It maintains connection.
So putting it together, if the internal sacred union holds, if the ASC and OFC are doing their jobs guided by the stress signals, the individual can pursue creation, achievement, opportunity, be brave without wrecking their relationships or damaging the community. Stay kind.
That's the ideal outcome. The decision-making process is fundamentally designed, according to these sources, to produce a person who is capable of both innovation and competition, brave, while also remaining cooperative and trustworthy, kind.
It brings it right back to the beginning. The system directly echoes that ancient pattern that required complementary forces yushed together for generation, order, and survival.
And the real beauty of the argument, I think, is how it integrates across these different levels: myth, psychology, neuroscience. The sources argue the neurological mechanism isn't just optimizing for the best personal outcome in isolation.
No. What then?
It's optimizing for the best outcome within the constraints of social acceptability and connection. Belonging is a non-negotiable part of the equation.
Which is why the OFC, the judge, is so critical.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It acts like the guardian of the covenant, the keeper of the Tom principle. It ensures the individual doesn't just break the sacred terms of the union: fairness, integrity, and a reckless pursuit of opportunity or vision.
So the need for connection, for positive action within a community, it's actually hardwired into our most complex decision pathways. According to this model, anyway.
That's the takeaway. So whether you're, I don't know, navigating a tense business negotiation,
Or facing a personal ethical choice.
or even just, going back to the analogy one last time, building a Lego castle with friends, the internal magic, the thing that leads to a good outcome, happens when that imagination, Demian Brave, and integrity, Tom Kind, are consistently yoked together, held in balance.
And that yoking ensures the outcome serves both the individual's deep need for achievement and their deep need for acceptance and connection.
Right. The core requirement for, well, joy, survival, healthy growth, it remains this necessity of the paired union. The Hieros Gamos that started in myth thousands of years ago and, these sources argue, ends up in the firing patterns of our modern cortex.
Wow. We have covered an incredible amount of ground in this deep dive.
Right.
Seriously. We started way back with the mythological necessity of Hieros Gamos, that ancient Greek imperative to yoke complementary forces, suzugmumi.
From gods and cosmos.
Then we applied that template to the psychological forces inside us, Demian and Tom, imagination and integrity as these core drivers of human development and maturation.
An internal pairing.
And finally, we landed in modern neuroscience, looking at the specific internal team, the ASC monitoring the conflict, the OFC ensuring integrity, the judge.
All managed and energized by the stress pathways.
To achieve that ultimate behavioral goal, enabling us to be both brave and kind.
It's a really compelling synthesis, isn't it? It paints a picture of this fundamental pattern echoing through time and across disciplines.
It really does.
And maybe if we could leave you, the listener, with one final thought to chew on, something to explore on your own.
Yeah.
If the whole point of this complex neurologically managed system is ideally designed to produce an individual who is both brave and kind, what happens? What happens when society itself, or the environment a person grows up in, puts chronic high-level stress on only one of those foundational paths?
Ooh, like for instance, what if the environment, maybe through hyper-competitive schooling or certain economic pressures, just massively rewards pure opportunity? Pure Demian, getting ahead at all costs.
While punishing or just minimizing the importance of belonging, of Tom, of kindness and fairness.
Yeah. What happens then to the harmony inside, to the creative capacity of the individual, especially maybe young people navigating this? What happens when that sacred union, that yoke between imagination and integrity, is constantly pulled apart, stressed, or even broken by external pressures?
Does the internal team, the ASC or OFC, eventually start to malfunction under that chronic imbalance? Does the system fail to produce brave and kind individuals?
That really is the ultimate deep dive question, isn't it? The potential consequences when that ancient, necessary yoke gets forcefully split apart in the modern world.
Something to definitely think about. Thank you for sharing your sources and for diving deep with us today.